Me again, and it's 1992, the year I flipped from teenager to adult. Just a quirk of numerical naming conventions, really, but still, a farewell to teenage me. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, wrote Charles Dickens in A Tale of Two Cities. And a tenuous link for this year, a tale of two albums dueling for my affections. Two records that I'd rather not be pitting against one another, if I'm being completely honest. So whilst I'm agonising over how to resolve this distraction, a brief diversion to consider the other albums I discarded along the way for 1992. Post-Loveless, shoegaze was starting to kind of squiggle off on disparate tangents. I've talked before about Moonshake's Evoluna, dubby post-punk, early post-rock, great record, and Moose's XYZ, dream pop textures with a country pop or easy listening twist. But a mention here for Doppelganger, the debut album from Curve, following a string of EP releases over the preceding year. Curve's unique selling point was their melding of arena-sized guitar scores with heavy, near-industrial electronic beats and backing. A dense, icy gothic take on shoegaze with club-friendly touches. A pretty influential album in its own right, really, providing a useful cut-out-and-keep template for bands like Garbage, who would take Curve's sound and buff it further for eager chart consumers later in the decade. R.E.M. laid down a marker this year with Automatic for the People, arguably cementing their place as, biggest band in the world at this time. It's the one that crossed over in a big way, whilst at the same time being a profound and complex rumination on loss and the passing of time. Less mysterious and oblique than their earlier records, it's a perfect big tent album in many ways, offering something for the new and old fans alike without, being a dilution in the way that some perceived Out of Time had been. Contrasting debuts this year from PJ Harvey with Dry and from Rage Against the Machine, one fusing carnal, paganistic blues and soul-bearing psychodrama with post-punk ferocity, the other mixing up inventive hard rock pyrotechnics with hip-hop, production tricks and mindset, and incendiary political focus and fury. Big statement albums, both. Leaving guitars behind briefly for the genre-defining electronic release of the year. That's Aphex Twin's Selected Ambient Works 85 to 92. An ambient electronic classic, dance music for contemplation, a beautiful, evolving, knotty, atmospheric head music designed to rewire neurons as much as to move feet. Okay, a hip-hop outlier for this year? How about the Disposable Heroes of Hiphoprisy and their Hiphoprisy is the Greatest Luxury album. As much an audio collage of political thought, the poetry of Gil Scott-Heron, of industrial samples and beats, it doesn't really fit within any of the then prevailing hip-hop trends, but it's still an absorbing listen. Think Bomb Squad, with jazzy flourishes and a West Coast anarcho-socialist agenda. Grunge had prized open new ears to some of the finest sounds of the American underground, and a couple of breakthrough albums from 80s stalwarts this year, starting with Liar by the Jesus Lizard, their third full-length, third with Albini, and as good a distillation of their manic post-punk splatter as you could hope for. Boilermaker, Gladiator, Puss. As good an album as Goat, I reckon. And also Bob back in band mode with Sugar and Copper Blue. Case of public tastes finally aligning with Mould's very unique set of skills. This broke no new ground for anyone familiar with the Huskers or his solo stuff. But Bob, finally given a break, pitched a dolly of a slow ball. He absolutely smashed it. You Get Changes, a good idea. If I Can't Change Your Mind, Hoover Dam, Fortune Teller. An alternative rock masterclass, hard, hooky, powerful, melodic, with that ever-present bittersweet lyrical edge. And so here I find myself sat with a big cartoon question mark on my summing up page for this video, still none the wiser over which way to jump. So I turn for help to the most unlikely of sources, namely Boris Johnson. I know what you're thinking. What possible insight could a hack journalist, a dishevelled cartoon bon viveur, a serial philanderer, a political failure, a human travesty like Boris Johnson offer in terms of advice to me right now? Well, Legend has it that Johnson, when deciding whether to back Leave or Remain in the 2016 Brexit referendum, wrote 2 columns for The Telegraph, a pro-Leave one and a pro-Remain one, before finally deciding to support the cataclysmic decision for the UK to leave the EU. We're not playing for such high stakes here, you can relax, but I'm going to briefly talk about both records at equal length before making my mind up. So without further ado, and to paraphrase Norfolk legend Alan Partridge, let battle commence. Released in April 1992, catching the last month or so of my life as a teenager, I've got Slanted and Enchanted by Pavement. The birth of lo-fi as a 90s musical phenomenon? There are a few other names to throw into the mix, of course. Sebadoh, Guided by Voices, Beat Happening maybe. But for me, this is the album that crystallises what it was all about at that time. Basically just a duo of Stephen Malkmus and Scott Canberg, aka Spiral Stairs, at this time. They'd roped in Gary Young on drums, owner of their favoured local recording studio in Stockton, California, and had been recording sporadic EPs and embarking on the odd shambolic tour with a few friends supplementing the core lineup. Slanted, their debut LP, was a continuation of this loosey-goosey arrangement, really, recorded mostly at Gary's in early 1991, with Stephen or Spiral adding bass guitar as appropriate. Their influences, that studied strand of New York cool, I think Sonic Youth or Lou Reed even, the busy, bustling clatter of first wave UK post-punk acts like The Fall, Swell Maps, the television personalities maybe, and also the primitively recorded psychedelic jangle and drone of the Dunedin sound, Kiwi bands like The Clean, Tall Dwarfs, The Chills, The Verlaines. And all those influences bubble round here amongst the static and the fragmented bursts of guitar racket. But it's the songwriting that burns through all of that like a hot needle through leather. The tired, unbothered vocals of Malkmus nonchalantly ride the elastic, nasal pop squall of Summer Babe, fuzz and clatter combining imperiously. The pop hooks are everywhere, the zinging shalalas that puncture the gnarly Sonic Youth chords of Trigger Cut, the patient, lugubrious crawl of In the Mouth a Desert, cracked woo-hoo-hoo vocals mirroring the pinched little guitar solo, the seesawing cross-talk of Conduit for Sale at increasingly strained vocals, I'm trying, brushing up against the ba-ba-bars, and Spiral's staggering, literally glam rock vamp, Two States. Personal favourites here? Well, the foamy fuzz textures and free-fall glide of the wonderful Loretta Scars, and of course the pulsing, metronomic torch song serenity of Here. A moment of melancholic reflection frozen amidst the punctured clatter and scratch. The pale blue eyes jumping out of the gleefully haphazard collage that surrounds them. An amazing album still. I saw them in July of that year. Mark Ibold and Bob Nastanovich were full-time members by that time, and the band were glorious. For me, this will always be lo-fi ground zero. It started here. So what could challenge that? All that guile, that cool, that willfully wonky edifice that Pavement had erected? Well, something a little less studied, less concerned with stylistic rigour. A record with a very big heart. A record like that old friend you can forgive for anything. From June that year. The first album of my adulthood, maybe? Yeah. This is It's a Shame About Ray by the Lemonheads. Back to Pavement for a second. Spiral Stairs always claimed he was more of a Replacements fan than a Fall fan. And ironically enough, my other choice today is from the one band with the natural heirs to the Replacements crown. I won't dwell too long on the band's origins. Late 80s school friends who'd injected a little lovelorn melodicism into hardcore punk. Think Hate Your Friends, Creator, Lick. And who by the time grunge rolled around and gave them their break at Atlantic Records were essentially a vehicle for singer-songwriter Evan Dando. By this time, Dando was mixing up his country and folk influences into a punkish power pop mix that occupied the more laid-back, down-home spot amongst the fizzing sugars and the raging machines of 1992. A slacker, a stoner, a, heaven forbid, hippie. Who cares? He lost it spectacularly by the middle of the decade. But for today, we're talking about this one. It's a Shame About Ray. A record that does what it does absolutely beautifully. 12 songs, a shade under 30 minutes. Light but ruminative. Warm, funny, peppy, thrashy, a little wistful, a little sad. Thinking back, it feels like the record that everybody in my circle of friends just got that year. The shoegazers, the pop kids, the grunge guys. Heck, I mean, by the end of the year, when they released their cover of Mrs. Robinson, tacked onto all the reissues of Ray, it was a good chance your parents would love it too. There's a light Huskers feel to Confetti. Yeah, it's a really hooky treat. There's the sad, distracted reminiscences of the title track. The lovely chord opening to Rudderless, a tale of trying to reconnect with reality, to get clean maybe. And you will find the occasional line that just stops you in your tracks. Butterscotch street lamps mark my path down. In the sublimely weightless, the turnpike down. It doesn't hang around. It makes you smile. It makes you well up. The punk rock awakening of the title character, for instance, of Alison starting to happen. And those hand claps in Kitchen. And that's it. I'm at a loss for words. There's nothing more to add. Some people, when they hear this, will just hear that annoying dude with an acoustic guitar crashing your campfire and sweet talking the pants off everybody. But damn it, that guy just manages to communicate something, doesn't he? It's not always profound, a little distracted maybe, but he makes you feel something, almost despite yourself. And sometimes I think that's enough. So 1992, 2 albums enter, 1 album leaves. I wish I didn't have to do this. I'd love to be able to leave it up to you, but it's kind of counter to the whole ethos behind this series. And in case you're wondering, I literally am sat here still thinking, which one am I going to go for? The invention, the spontaneity of Pavement, or just the big-hearted embrace of Evan Dando and the Lemonheads? Is my head telling me one and my heart the other? Yeah, kind of. And here's the big spoiler for you, if you like. My son, when he was born, we decided to call him Evan. So yeah, my choice for 1992 is the Lemonheads. It's a Shame About Ray. It's not all about the nostalgia. It just makes me feel something that Slanted and Enchanted doesn't. And I love it for that reason. We have a winner. There are no losers here though, are there? Which would you prefer? Pavement, Lemonheads, or maybe you've got a completely different horse that you're looking to back? Tell me about it down below. As ever, very happy to see you at this point in the video. Thanks for getting this far into it. Please think about leaving a thumbs up and why not subscribe while you're at it too. But that's it for this episode. Please do take care and I hope to see you back here again very soon. Bye for now.